She was walking home, an old flashlight in her hand, until a cry for help led her to a dark alley, and what happened next changed their lives forever. The darkness of night engulfed the narrow streets, and a heavy silence fell over the poor neighborhood, which rarely knew complete stillness. In the midst of that gloom, a girl of barely 12 years old, Sophia, huddled inside a thin sweatshirt that barely protected her from the biting autumn chill. In her tiny hands, an old, trembling flashlight, the only point of light in a sea of shadows, guided her hesitant steps. She carried the weight of a responsibility that few girls her age would know, a mission vital to the survival of her small family. Her mother, Lucia Ramirez, reluctant to let her go out so late, had given in to Sophia's insistence, who was determined not to miss the opportunity to get bread for the next day from Doña Hilda, the owner of the small store 5 blocks away. Sophia's stomach rumbled softly, reminding her of the thin soup they had shared earlier, and the determination in her eyes was stronger than any fear the night could inspire. She gripped the flashlight tighter, the faint light dancing across her forehead, a small beacon in the vastness of the night that stretched out around her. Filled with uncertainties and hidden dangers, she preferred to ignore in order to focus on her goal of securing the food. With hurried steps, Sophia moved forward under the flickering light of the lampposts, avoiding the deep shadows that lurked between them, where the darkness seemed to thicken, holding secrets she didn't want to reveal. Few people were still on the street at that hour. Shopkeepers closing their shops and a group of teenagers laughing carefree, sitting on some steps. Seeing the same faces and hearing the familiar sounds of her neighborhood brought her a small comfort, a feeling that, despite the darkness that had now completely fallen, there was still a glimmer of normalcy. However, that fragile sense of security was abruptly shattered. Near the corner where the store was located, a muffled moan from a side street made her stop abruptly, her heart pounding in her chest like a frantic drum. A dull thud, followed by a low groan of pain, echoed from the narrow alley. Someone was in trouble, and her mother's warning, "Stay out of dark streets," echoed in her mind. But a stronger impulse, a cry for help, was tugging at her inside, an undeniable urgency that someone needed help, and there was no one else around to help. Gripping the flashlight, Sophia inched closer to the alley entrance, where the dim light from a distant lantern barely penetrated, revealing only blurred outlines. There she saw the disturbing scene. A large, shadowy man in a dark jacket, standing over another man who was lying curled up on the ground, trying in vain to protect himself from the blows. The attacker was yelling something unintelligible and kicking him hard in the ribs. Sophia's hands trembled with fear, a paralyzing dread, but the rage that gripped her at the cowardice of the attack drove her forward. She couldn't stand there, watching the injustice unfold before her eyes, feeling her blood run cold. She took a deep breath, summoning all the courage she could find in her small body, and stepped forward, raising her voice in a shout that tried to sound braver than she felt, hoping that her intervention, however small, might stop the brutality unfolding before her in that gloomy alley, a place that had suddenly become the scene of a nightmare. "Hey, leave him alone," Sophia shouted, her voice thin but surprisingly firm, cutting through the tension in the alley. The assailant lifted his head at the sound, and in the dim light, Sophia managed to glimpse a frowning face beneath a woolen cap. "Get out of here, kid," he snarled, walking toward her with heavy, menacing steps. Sophia's heart pounded in her chest, but she didn't move, defying the intimidation. Instead of, backing away, she turned on her flashlight and shone the beam straight into the man's face. He flinched, momentarily blinded by the light, staggering backward. "Help! Help! Please!" Sophia screamed at the top of her lungs, hoping with all her might that someone would hear her, that her pleas would reach willing ears. For a few seconds the man hesitated, blinking against the light, while distant voices began to sound confused. The teenagers on the stairs had heard her and came to see what was happening, increasing the pressure on the attacker and making his escape imminent in the desperation of the moment. The man cursed, looking nervously from Sophia to the street, the expression on his face twisting between rage and growing despair. "This isn't over," he muttered in a deep, menacing voice, his eyes fixed on Sophia with a hatred that made her shudder, a sinister warning that this was only the beginning, not the end. Then, with one last look of hatred, he turned and ran, disappearing, deeper into the alley, swallowed by the darkness that seemed to invite him to flee. Sophia stood there, trembling, unable to believe that the man was gone, that her courage, however small, had managed to ward off the immediate danger. As soon as he disappeared, she ran toward the man lying on the ground. He was lying on his side, his arms across his stomach, right where he'd been hit, a defensive position that hadn't fully protected him from the blows. Closer in, Sophia noticed he was an older man, perhaps in his 50s, and well-dressed, though his suit was now wrinkled and dirty, bearing the marks of the assault he had just suffered. He had a cut on his forehead that was bleeding, and his face was filled with pain, revealing the extent of his suffering. "Sir, can you hear me?" Sophia asked, kneeling beside him, her voice trembling, but with a clear intention to help. She gently touched his shoulder. The man's eyes opened slightly, light blue and unfocused, filled with pain and confusion. He let out a soft groan. "Thank you," she whispered with difficulty. "Please don't move, I'm going to get help," Sophia said, trying to sound calm, although inside a pang of uncertainty filled her. "I wish I knew first aid," she thought. They'd been taught some basics in school, and Sophia remembered that she was supposed to keep him awake, make him talk. "Help is coming. Please hold on a little while," she said, repeating the words to herself like a mantra. Footsteps stopped abruptly. Behind her, two of the teenagers from the street had arrived, breathless, their eyes wide with fright at the sight of the injured man. A tall boy immediately pulled out his cell phone. "I'm going to call 911, he said, his voice shaking with adrenaline, the urgency of the situation becoming palpable to everyone present. The other teenager, a girl wearing bright pink sneakers, knelt in front of Sophia, her eyes wide open in fright at the sight of the injured man, the shock visible on her pale face. As she witnessed the gravity of the situation, both teenagers stood nearby, pale and anxious, as Sophia continued talking to the man, encouraging him not to fall asleep, to fight the darkness that seemed to be trying to drag him down. He was breathing heavily, each breath a visible effort, but at least he was alive, a faint sign of hope amidst the chaos. Sophia took his hand in both of hers, trying to comfort him, to transmit a bit of her own strength and determination. "Hang in there, sir. Don't fall asleep, yes. Stay with me," she implored, her voice soft and filled with concern, knowing that every minute was crucial. Minutes later, the sound of sirens echoed off the brick walls. An ambulance screeched to a halt at the entrance to the alley, its red and blue lights flashing, and right behind it came a police car, the sight of long-awaited help bringing a breath of relief to Sophia and the teenagers, who until then had felt alone in the face of adversity. Two paramedics rushed down with a stretcher. "Please make room," one of them said as they approached the injured man with professionalism. Sophia let go of the man's hand and stepped aside, but not too far, wanting to see what was happening. Her heart was pounding as the paramedics quickly checked him. They took his pulse, controlled the bleeding, and put on an oxygen mask. Everything was quick and precise, an emergency choreography aimed at preserving life. A police officer approached the small group of witnesses where Sophia and the two teenagers were. "Did anyone see what happened?" he asked, looking at the young men and then at Sophia. Sophia took a deep breath, still trembling, and raised her hand slightly. I saw it," she said, her voice unsteady, but looking the officer in the eye, feeling a responsibility to recount the events. "What's your name?" the officer asked, taking out a notebook. "Sophia Alvarez," she replied in a low, trembling voice, although her determination was undeniable. "Okay, Sophia. Officer Patel said calmly. "Can you tell me what happened?" A few steps away, paramedics were already carrying the injured man toward the ambulance. One of them gathered his belongings, a briefcase and a wallet he had dropped. As he loaded him into the ambulance, one shouted to the officers, "We have your ID. Benjamin Herrera, 60 years old." Officer Patel's eyebrows immediately rose. He clearly recognized the name. Sophia recognized him too. He was a millionaire, known for his charity work in the city. She had heard his name on the news, but she never imagined meeting him like this. She felt a strange knot in her stomach, a mixture of astonishment and the weight of the situation she had just experienced. Before they closed the ambulance, Sophia approached and squeezed his hand once more. The man's eyes opened slightly, searching for her through the pain. Sophia managed to give him a soft smile and made a slight movement with her fingers, a silent but hopeful gesture of farewell. A hint of a smile seemed to spread across the man's battered face before he closed his eyes again. A final thank you to the little girl who had saved him. "We're going to Santa Maria Hospital," said one of the paramedics as he climbed into the ambulance. Within seconds, they drove off with the siren blaring, breaking the night silence. Officer Patel placed a hand on Sophia's shoulder. "We're going to follow them to the hospital. Come, I'll take you. We have to call your parents and let them know you're okay." "My mom's home," Sophia replied, suddenly remembering how worried Lucia Ramirez must be. It was already late, time had flown by, and her mother's anxiety was surely through the roof. "We'll call her on the way," the officer assured her, guiding her to the back seat of the patrol car. The two teenagers waved at her as she got in. Sophia returned a weak smile, grateful that they had come to help her in that critical moment, reinforcing the idea that, in the midst of adversity, the union of different people can be the greatest strength. As the patrol car followed the ambulance through the city streets, Sophia sat in the back seat, her hands still shaking in her lap. Only then did she notice the dark bloodstains on her fingers, Mr. Herrera's blood, stark against the paleness of her skin. She wiped them on her jeans, swallowing. The adrenaline that had kept her brave was fading, leaving her trembling and cold in the front seat. In the front seat, Officer Patel spoke quietly into his radio, reporting what had happened, the seriousness of the situation still palpable in the air. Then he kept his promise and called Lucia Ramirez to explain what had happened and that Sophia was okay. Sophia imagined her mother's voice, at first desperate, then relieved, and felt a deep desire to hear from her directly, but the time wasn't right yet. After hanging up, the officer looked at Sophia in the rearview mirror, his expression a combination of concern and admiration for her courage. "Your mom already knows you're okay," the officer told her. "We'll be at the hospital in a few minutes." "Thank you," Sophia whispered, her voice hoarse with emotion. She leaned her forehead against the cold window and watched the city lights flash by. "I just hope he's okay," she murmured. Her reflection in the glass showed a scared little girl. Her eyes reddened with tears she was holding back, an internal battle between fear and the need to remain strong. The officer nodded silently. "I think he's in good hands now, and it's all thanks to you," the officer said, acknowledging the girl's bravery. Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, letting the soft hum of the car calm her. She had stepped forward to help a stranger in distress, and nothing about that night had gone as she expected. She had no idea what would happen next, not with Benjamin Herrera, not with her. He only knew that, after that night, nothing would ever be the same, that a new page in his life had unexpectedly opened. Sophia sat hunched over a hard plastic bench in the hospital waiting room. Her small hands nervously played with the edge of a wool blanket an officer had placed around her shoulders. The fluorescent lights made everything feel unreal. Hours before, she'd been walking home like any other night, and now here she was, a stranger's blood still on her sleeve, waiting for news. Inspector Javier Morales was nearby, talking quietly on his cell phone. When he finished, he approached the 12-year-old girl with a kind expression. "They're taking care of him, Sophia," he said. "The doctors say he's stable thanks to you." Sophia let out a sigh she hadn't known she'd been holding. Relief and exhaustion washed over her at once. "I just hope he's okay," she murmured. Before Inspector Javier could respond, hurried footsteps echoed down the hallway. Lucia Ramirez Alvarez ran in, her eyes filled with anguish until they saw her daughter. A scene that reflected the fear and uncertainty of a mother who expected the worst, but now saw her daughter safe. "Sophia, my girl," Lucia Ramirez cried, falling to her knees and hugging Sophia with all her strength. "Mom," Sophia whispered, clinging to her. She felt her mother's tears, warm against her neck. Lucia Ramirez pulled away slightly and took her face in her hands. "When the police called me, I feared the worst. Are you okay? Did they not hurt you?" Her voice trembled, full of relief and still holding a trace of fear. "I'm fine," Sophia assured her softly. "I'm sorry for worrying you." Inspector Javier Morales stepped forward and respectfully removed his hat. "Hello, Mrs. Alvarez. I'm Inspector Javier Morales. You have a very brave daughter. You probably saved a man's life tonight." Lucia Ramirez gave Sofia a shaky smile. "Did you hear, my love? Did you hear that? You saved him." Her face showed a mixture of pride and concern, a dichotomy between the fear of what could have happened and the joy of seeing her daughter as a true hero. Then Lucia Ramirez looked at Inspector Javier. "Hello, how is the gentleman? He regained consciousness a little while ago." Inspector Javier Morales replied, "He's bruised, but stable, and he asked for the girl who helped him." Sofia's heart leapt. Does he want to see me?" Inspector Javier nodded. "I think it will do him good, and maybe it will help you feel calmer too." Lucia Ramirez kept an arm around her daughter's shoulders as they followed a nurse down the hallway to a private room. Sofia's stomach was turning. She didn't know why she was so nervous about seeing the man again, but she was, a mixture of anticipation and the natural shyness around such an important figure. Inside the room, Benjamin Herrera was leaning back against some pillows. In the soft light, Sofia saw the bandages around his graying hair and the bruises on his cheek and jaw. Still, his eyes were open and clear, and they lit up with tenderness at the sight of her, a gesture of silent gratitude that moved Sofia deeply. "Hello," Benjamin greeted, his voice a little hoarse but friendly. He tried to sit up a little and let out a moan with the effort, a sign of the fragility of his injured body. Lucia Ramirez gently pushed Sofia forward. The girl took a timid step. "Hello, Mr. Herrera," she said softly. "I'm glad you're awake." Benjamin gave a weak laugh of relief. "Me too, and I owe it to you, Miss Sofia." His eyes moistened as he spoke. "The doctor told me you stayed with me, that you helped me before. The ambulance arrived. You saved my life." Sofia felt her cheeks heat up. She wasn't used to being congratulated like that, to being the center of so much attention and important words. "I just did what I could, sir," she replied. "I couldn't just leave him there." Benjamin looked at Lucia Ramirez as if he saw in the girl the kindness inherited from her mother. "Your daughter is extraordinary," he said. Lucia Ramirez squeezed Sofia's shoulder. "You have a big heart. I'm just grateful that I was in the right place at the right time for you." A phrase that sealed the fate between the two families. The silence that followed was thick, charged with emotion. Benjamin swallowed with difficulty. "I don't know how I'm going to thank you." "You don't have to," Sofia interrupted immediately. "As long as he's okay, that's enough for me." Benjamin smiled, moved by her sincerity. He noticed Sofia playing with something in her hands. A candy wrapper she'd been folding and unfolding, a gesture of innocent nervousness. With a shy smile, Sofia finished folding it into a small heart shape and placed it on the table next to the bed. "This is for you," she said. "It's silly, but I want you to have it." Benjamin took the small improvised heart carefully. His throat tightened with emotion. "It's not silly at all," he managed to say in a low voice. "I'm going to keep it with love." Lucia Ramirez cleared her throat softly. "We must let Mr. Herrera rest, my daughter." Before they turned to leave, Benjamin asked, "Can I know your full name?" A genuine desire to meet the little girl who had impacted his life so profoundly. "Sofia Alvarez," she replied. "And this is my mother, Lucia Ramirez." "Sofia," he repeated with a small, warm smile. "I won't forget. Thank you, Sofia Alvarez." They exchanged a soft, "Good night." When Sofia and Lucia Ramirez reached the door, Benjamin spoke again, this time with a slightly firmer voice. "You rest too, young lady, and I'd like to see you again if that's okay with you." He looked at Lucia Ramirez. "Perhaps when I'm discharged I could thank you properly." Lucia Ramirez nodded politely, if somewhat cautiously. "You don't owe us anything, Mr. Herrera, but I'm sure Sofia would be happy to see you when you're feeling better." With one last smile, mother and daughter left the room. Sofia's heart felt strangely light to see Benjamin safe, a sense of peace after the storm. Already in the hallway, Inspector Javier Morales was waiting for them. "Is everything okay?" he asked. Sofia managed a tired smile. "He's going to be fine," she said, feeling a deep sense of relief. Inspector Javier Morales offered to drive them home. and soon they were on their way back through the quiet streets. Sophia leaned against her mother in the back seat, exhaustion beginning to take hold of her now that everything was over. As they approached her neighborhood, Inspector Javier Morales spoke gently. Sophia mentioned that she thought she saw two men running away. When she found Mr. Herrera, one seemed to be limping. "We're investigating." Lucia Ramirez tensed slightly and hugged Sophia more tightly. The thought of those men still on the loose troubled her deeply. "Are you going to catch who did this?" she asked. "We'll do everything in our power," Inspector Javier Morales assured her. "Mr. Herrera didn't get to see their faces, but with your testimony and Sophia's, we already have some leads." Sophia shivered. The night had grown colder, and the familiar streets of her neighborhood began to appear. Flickering lampposts, worn brick buildings, and boarded-up businesses. Suddenly, she was very grateful for Inspector Javier's presence, which brought a sense of security that they couldn't give themselves. The car stopped in front of the building where they lived. Lucia Ramirez thanked Inspector Javier in a low voice, while Sophia struggled to keep her eyes open. "Take care of yourselves, both of you," said Inspector Javier Morales. He handed Lucia Ramirez a card. "Call me if you need anything or remember any more details. I'll be in touch." Lucia Ramirez nodded, and Sophia managed to wave goodbye as he walked away, the officer's figure slowly disappearing into the darkness. Once inside their small apartment, Lucia Ramirez helped Sophia take off her jacket and shoes. It was then that she noticed the blood on her daughter's clothes, and her breath caught in her throat, a mixture of horror and relief that her daughter was alive. But she didn't say anything. She didn't want to alarm her further. That could wait until morning. Sophia was barely awake. Lucia Ramirez carried her to the small bed in the corner and arranged the thin blankets on her shoulders, tiredness overcoming her after such a dramatic night. "Mom," Sophia murmured, as Lucia Ramirez brushed a damp strand of hair from her forehead. "What's wrong, my love?" Lucia Ramirez responded tenderly. "That man, Benjamin, could have died," Sophia said, her voice heavy with emotion and sleep. "I'm glad he didn't." Lucia Ramirez's eyes filled with tears in the darkness. She leaned over and kissed her daughter's forehead. "Me too, my daughter. You did something wonderful. I'm so proud of you." Sophia closed her eyes as a tear escaped down her cheek. She felt her mother's hand holding hers, warm, firm, safe. "I was scared," she confessed softly. "I know," Lucia Ramirez whispered, "but you were brave even though you were scared. That's truly brave." Sophia's hand relaxed in her mother's as she finally fell asleep. The long day was over. Lucia Ramirez stayed by her side for a few more minutes, silently thanking her daughter for being home and safe. But whatever the danger that night had been, they had each other, and as long as that didn't change, they would find a way to get through it together. 2 days later, pale morning light filtered through the only window of the Alvarez apartment. Sophia sat at the small kitchen table, carefully pouring 2 cups of chamomile tea, one for her mother and one for the visitor they were expecting. Benjamin Herrera had called the day before to ask if he could come in. True to his word, he hadn't forgotten them. Lucia Ramirez moved around the cramped apartment, arranging a stack of books and smoothing the worn armchair cushions. She was nervous. It wasn't every day a millionaire came to their humble home. "Mom, do you think he'd feel comfortable here?" Sophia murmured, nervously straightening her faded skirt, trying to reassure her mother. "He's coming to see us, Mom, not the apartment." Still, her heart was beating fast, full of anticipation. A firm knock on the door brought them both to their feet. Lucia Ramirez rushed to open the door, and there stood Benjamin Herrera, somewhat pale, but standing, the bruises on his face had already faded to a yellowish hue, and he was leaning lightly on a cane. She smiled warmly. "Good morning," Benjamin greeted. "May I come in?" "Yes, of course, come in," Lucia Ramirez replied, stepping aside. The apartment's simplicity was evident. Peeling paint, a single electric stovetop, a bed slumped against the wall. Benjamin seemed to notice this without judgment and immediately turned his attention to Sophia. "Hello, Sophia," he said. Sophia beamed. "Hello, Mr. Benjamin," she said, quietly correcting herself as she remembered he had asked to call him by his first name. Benjamin leaned forward carefully, mindful of his ribs, and gave her a brief, gentle hug. "It's nice to see you." "Again," he said sincerely. Lucia Ramirez offered him the firmest chair they had. "Please sit down. May I offer you some tea? It's not much, but it's warm." "Tea sounds perfect," he replied as he sat down. He put his cane aside and exhaled, relieved to be able to rest. Sophia brought him a steaming cup, which he accepted with thanks. For a moment, the three of them sipped in silence, basking in the warmth of her presence. Finally, Benjamin cleared his throat. "I hope I'm not being inopportune. I realize I practically invited myself," he said with a sheepish smile. "Not at all," Lucia Ramirez responded quickly. "It's an honor to have you here. How have you been feeling?" "I'm getting better," she said. "The doctors say I was very lucky. It was just a concussion and some broken ribs that will heal. I'm moving better now." He gave Sophia a meaningful smile. "Lucky for you, of course." Sophia felt her cheeks burn and lowered her head. "I'm glad you're okay," she murmured. Then Benjamin reached into his jacket and pulled out a thin envelope. He handed it to Lucia Ramirez. "I wanted to thank you properly. This is a small gesture from me." Lucia Ramirez took the envelope curiously. Inside was a handwritten note and a check. When she saw the amount, she gasped. "Mr. Herrera, this is too much," he stammered, his hands shaking, unable to grasp the magnitude of the generosity being offered to him at that moment. "It's for Sophia's education and whatever else you need right now," Benjamin said gently. "Please, I want to help." Lucia Ramirez's eyes filled with tears. That amount was enough for school supplies, new clothes, maybe even several months' rent. A dream coming true. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "You already did by letting me stay here," he replied. Then he looked at Sophia. "Your mom told me you're a good student when you can attend classes." Sophia nodded shyly. "I like school, especially reading. I want to be a teacher someday, I think." Benjamin's smile widened. "It's a beautiful dream, and now you're going to study hard to achieve it, okay? Consider it part of the commitment when you accept my gift." Sophia nodded enthusiastically. "I will. Thank you, sir. I'm going to make you proud." Lucia Ramirez wiped a tear and squeezed her daughter's hand, a silent show of gratitude for the future that lay before them. They spent a few more minutes chatting quietly. Benjamin learned that Lucia Ramirez worked long hours cleaning in a restaurant and doing sewing alterations, and that Sophia helped out at a local convenience store after school to earn a little money. Every detail painted a portrait of a working-class family barely getting by, and that moved Benjamin deeply. He was about to suggest they visit that weekend when, through the window, a sleek black sedan pulled up in front of the building. Sophia saw a tall, elegant woman get out of the car and walk confidently toward the door. There was another knock. Benjamin looked a little embarrassed. "That must be my colleague," he said. "Sorry, I asked my assistant to pick me up this morning and didn't realize the time." Lucia Ramirez opened the door and found herself facing a blonde woman, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. The visitor's cold blue eyes swept over Lucia Ramirez politely, then moved deeper into the apartment, where they rested on Benjamin. "There you are," the woman said with visible relief, entering without hesitation. She gave Lucia Ramirez a brief smile. "Sorry for intruding. I'm Veronica Salgado, Benjamin's business partner. I was worried about him." Her voice revealed a mix of professionalism and concern that seemed genuine at the moment. Veronica's gaze fell on Sophia, and her smile tightened in surprise. "And you must be the young lady everyone at the office is talking about." She bent down a little to be at Sophia's eye level. "You're famous at Grayson Enterprises, you know. Everyone's talking about how brave you were." Sophia blushed, scuffing the toe of her shoe on the floor. "I just helped," she said softly. She thought Veronica's perfume was too strong and her presence a little overwhelming, a feeling of subtle discomfort. Benjamin intervened delicately. "Veronica, this is Lucia Ramirez Alvarez and her daughter Sophia. They're the ones who saved me, as I told you." Veronica straightened and offered Lucia Ramirez her hand. "It's nice to meet you." Her shake was brief and firm. It was clear she was in a hurry to get Benjamin out of there. "We have that meeting at 10, Benjamin. Do you feel up to it?" "I'm fine," Benjamin replied, reaching for his cane. Sorry to keep you waiting, we were almost done. He turned to Lucia Ramirez and Sofia, his eyes filled with regret at having to cut the visit short, a clear indication of his desire to stay longer. Thank you for the tea, and for welcoming me so kindly, Benjamin said. I meant it when I said I'd like to see you again soon. Maybe this weekend you could come to my house for lunch. I'd love to show you my gardens, Sofia. I have a feeling you'd like them. Sofia's face lit up. She loved flowers, though she rarely saw more than the dandelions growing between the cracks in the sidewalk. Really? We would love to, Mr. Benjamin, she said excitedly, looking to her mother for approval. Lucia Ramirez nodded with a cordial smile, still touched by everything. We would be so happy to visit, and thank you again for everything. Benjamin simply smiled. It's the least I can do. With that, he shook Lucia Ramirez's hand, and to Sofia's surprise, he patted her affectionately on the head, making the little girl beam from ear to ear. Veronica was already holding the door open, car keys in hand. She politely said goodbye to the Alvarezes, though Sofia noticed her smile disappear as soon as she turned around, a subtle detail that little Sofia, with her childlike wit, didn't miss. As soon as the door closed, Sofia ran to the window. She saw Veronica guiding Benjamin toward the elegant black car. The woman's hand hovered near his back as if to help him, but as soon as Benjamin settled into the seat, her face changed. From a distance, Sofia couldn't make out the expression, but something in the sudden rigidity of her posture caught her attention. She tilted her head slightly, thoughtful. Lucia Ramirez continued to stare at the check, her hands shaking. Our life could be changing, Sofia, she whispered, her voice full of hope and disbelief. She hugged her daughter tightly, all thanks to your generous heart. Sofia hugged her back, feeling more secure and optimistic than ever. Benjamin's visit had been like a ray of light in their story. Outside, Veronica closed the car door and settled next to Benjamin as the driver started the car. Benjamin exhaled with a calm expression. They're good people, he murmured, almost to himself, relieved by the simplicity of the kindness he had just experienced. Veronica's red lips pressed into a thin line. I'm sure you do, she replied, though there was an edge to her voice that wasn't entirely kind. She glanced back at the dilapidated building they were leaving behind. You've always had a soft spot for charity work, haven't you? Benjamin frowned slightly. Veronica. She raised her hand in apology. Sorry, it came off more harshly than I intended. I'm just worried. You went through something really tough, and now you're spending your morning in a drafty building, playing the good Samaritan. I don't want you to overexert yourself. Benjamin watched her silently for a moment. They had worked together for years. She was efficient, intelligent, always looking out for the company's interests as well as his. He assumed her coldness stemmed from concern. I appreciate your concern, but helping that family means something to me. Veronica forced a smile and placed a hand on his arm. Sure, I just want you to recover and be well. We still need you at the company, you know. Benjamin nodded, letting his head fall back into the seat. Deep down, the morning had indeed worn him out a little, but his heart felt lighter than it had in a long time, a contrast between his physical fatigue and the lightness of spirit that kindness had brought. We talked about the meeting on the way, Benjamin said, closing his eyes. Veronica remained silent, watching the city streets blur past the window. Her face was unreadable as the car pulled away, a mask of composure hiding her true thoughts. On Saturday morning, Sofia stopped by Doña Hilda's corner store before leaving. The little bell above the door rang as she entered. Doña Hilda, the kind older shopkeeper, lit up at the sight. Here's my little heroine, she exclaimed, lovingly hugging Sofia. They told me what you did for that man. I'm so proud of you, girl. Sofia blushed at the praise. I'm just glad I arrived on time, she said humbly. Then she looked at some daisies in a bucket by the counter. Mr. Herrera invited us to lunch at his house today. I thought maybe I could take him some flowers. Doña Hilda's eyes sparkled with delight. Of course, my girl. She took a cheerful bouquet of daisies and tied them with a piece of jute twine. Here, they're on the house. Tell that gentleman they're from a grateful neighborhood. Sofia thanked her and ran back home, her heart filled with joy at Doña Hilda's simple gesture of kindness. Shortly after, a shiny black car arrived to pick up Sofia and Lucia Ramirez for The visit. As the car sped through the city, heading for an affluent area, mother and daughter gazed out the window in awe. They passed through iron gates onto a property filled with summer flowers surrounding a large red brick house. Benjamin greeted them at the gate, standing, no longer using his cane. His face lit up with a big smile. "Welcome. Come in, come in." Sophia, somewhat shy, handed him the bouquet of daisies. "These are for you, from Doña Hilda. She owns the store where I sometimes, help out." "What a lovely touch," said Benjamin, visibly moved. He signaled to a housekeeper. "Maria Elena, could you put these in a vase for the table?" Afterward, he led Sophia and Lucia Ramirez through their beautiful house to a sun-drenched backyard. Lunch was served under a striped awning overlooking a vibrant garden. Little birds fluttered among the rose bushes as they ate. Benjamin kept the conversation light and pleasant. He told fun stories about growing up on a farm and how he later built his business. He asked Sophia about school and her dreams. She ended by telling him about her favorite books and the little stories she wrote in a notebook at home every now and then. Lucia Ramirez had to blink back tears of happiness at seeing her daughter so free, so happy, a touching contrast to the life of deprivation they used to lead. After dessert, Benjamin led them along a stone path in the garden, naming each flower for Sophia: roses, peonies, lilies. He even picked a perfect red rose and handed it to her. "For you," he said with a wink. "Every young lady should have a flower." Sophia raised it to her nose, smiling so big her cheeks ached. All that afternoon, Lucia Ramirez felt a new peace blossoming within her, a sense of hope. Under the warm sun and soft laughter, the problems of everyday life seemed distant, almost insignificant. As dusk began to fall, Benjamin's driver returned to take them home. Lucia Ramirez thanked her host profusely at the door. "I don't know how we'll ever be able to repay such kindness." "Nothing like that," Benjamin replied. "It was a real pleasure, and you two are welcome here any time, don't forget that." Sophia hugged him tightly and sincerely. Then she ran to catch up with her mother, who was already getting into the car. As they drove away down the long driveway, she looked back and saw Benjamin waving goodbye, his figure growing smaller and smaller until he was finally lost to sight, a final trace of the friendship they had forged. That night, however, the joy of the day crumbled. Shortly after midnight, Sophia was awakened by a soft, scraping sound. At first, she thought she had dreamed it, but then she heard another noise, the creaking of her apartment window slowly opening, an ominous sound that cut through the tranquility of the night and plunged her back into a state of alert. Sophia's heart stopped. In the darkness, she could barely make out a tall figure slipping into the living room. She turned and shook her mother. "Mom!" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Someone's here!" Lucia Ramirez stirred, her face filled with confusion. Then she saw the silhouette by the window, and her blood ran cold. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice cracking. In that instant, the intruder realized he'd been discovered. He dove for the open window to escape. As he did, a ray of moonlight revealed the metallic gleam of a knife in his hand. Lucia Ramirez let out a strangled scream and put her arm in front of Sophia, protecting her, a maternal instinct overcoming any personal fear. But the man didn't attack. Instead, he jumped onto the fire escape and disappeared into the night. For a few seconds, all was silent except for Sophia's labored breathing. Then Lucia Ramirez staggered over to turn on the lamp. The small apartment was a mess, drawers open, things thrown everywhere. The window was still open, the curtain moving in the breeze. On the floor, something glittered. Sophia cautiously approached, still, staring out the window, and picked it up. It was a knife stuck in the linoleum. The tip pierced a sheet of paper. With trembling fingers, she unfolded the note and read the scrawled handwritten words, "Shut your mouth." Sophia's throat went dry. She passed the note to her mother, who read it and brought her hand to her mouth, horrified. Lucia Ramirez grabbed the phone and dialed 911 with trembling fingers. Within minutes, sirens were heard approaching. Detective Sergeant Javier Morales arrived, with 2 officers, their faces serious as they ascended the stairs. While the officers searched the area for the intruder, Detective Sergeant Javier Morales carefully collected the knife and the note as evidence. Sophia, wrapped in a blanket, recounted in a low voice what had happened. Lucia Ramirez stayed by her side, holding her tightly, her presence a balm for the girl's terror. "Didn't he try to hurt them?" Inspector Javier Morales asked softly. "No," Sophia replied. "He just ran away when he saw us." Lucia Ramirez shook her head, still in shock. "They came in just to leave a threat." Inspector Javier's jaw tightened. "To scare them," he said. "Surely the same people who attacked Mr. Herrera want to make sure they don't talk to the police." He rubbed his face with his hand, then crouched down in front of Sophia, looking her straight in the eyes. "Listen to me carefully. I promise you we'll find those men, but I don't feel comfortable leaving you here tonight, or any other night until we catch them. It's not safe." As if fate were answering, hurried footsteps were heard coming up the stairs. "Sophia! Lucia Ramirez!" a familiar voice called. Benjamin appeared in the doorway, still dressed, but his face full of concern. He had probably left as soon as Inspector Javier Morales called him to inform him of the raid. Behind him was his driver, with the same anguished expression, both visibly shaken by the news. "Sophia, are you okay?" Benjamin asked, rushing inside. His eyes scanned the ruined room and the still open window. His expression hardened, protective. Sophia jumped up and ran to him. She wasn't a crying child, but now tears escaped as she clutched at Benjamin's sleeve. "They broke into our house," she sobbed. Benjamin put his arm around her, firm and warm. "I'm so sorry," he murmured tenderly. Then, he looked over Sophia's head, addressing Lucia Ramirez. "Pack a bag. You both are coming with me right now. I have a safe house and plenty of space. I can't allow you to spend another night here, knowing those criminals are still on the loose." Lucia Ramirez opened her mouth to protest, pride briefly surfacing, but the look of terror in her daughter's eyes erased any intention of refusing help. "Okay," she agreed in a hoarse whisper. "Thank you." Doña Hilda appeared in the hallway doorway in her bathrobe, visibly nervous, drawn by the patrol car's lights. Benjamin gently guided Sophia back to her mother's so they could pack the essentials. Then he went out into the hallway to reassure the neighbor. "They'll be safe with me, ma'am," Sophia overheard her saying. "Thank you for looking after them." Doña Hilda wiped away a tear of relief. "Take good care of them, okay?" "Always," Benjamin promised. Half an hour later, Sophia and Lucia Ramirez were sitting in Benjamin's car, driving away from the only home they had ever known. Sophia watched out the window as the shadows of the building faded into the distance, wondering if she would ever feel safe there again. When they arrived at Benjamin's property, the house was softly lit, and the staff had already prepared 2 cozy, adjoining guest rooms. The guard at the entrance gave Benjamin a firm nod, indicating that everything was under control inside. Maria Elena, the housekeeper, rushed to bring tea and extra blankets. She looked after Sophia and Lucia Ramirez with an almost grandmotherly sweetness. "You're safe here," she told them tenderly as she guided them to their rooms. "No one will get past Mr. Herrera's guards tonight." In the bedroom, Lucia Ramirez helped Sophia settle into the large, soft bed. The girl stared at the unfamiliar ceiling, the fear of the night slowly fading. Lucia Ramirez stroked her hair. "Try to sleep, my love," she whispered, though her voice was also trembling. Sophia turned to look at her in a low voice. "What if they come back, Mom?" Lucia Ramirez's eyes sparkled, but she forced a reassuring smile. "They won't find us here. Benjamin will take care of us, and the police are already aware. Now we have people on our side." Sophia sighed and closed her eyes. She felt her mother's kiss on her forehead as she began to hum an old lullaby. Little by little, the tension left her body. Exhausted by the excitement and fear of the day, she fell asleep, restless but finally protected. The morning light found Sophia in an unfamiliar bedroom inside Benjamin's house. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then the memories came flooding back, the intruder, the note, running away in the middle of the night. She sat up, wrapping herself in the soft quilt, trying to catch her breath. A soft knock on the door broke the silence. "Come in," Sophia said. Benjamin peeked his head in with a friendly smile. He was carrying a tray with 2 steaming cups. "Good morning. I brought hot chocolate for you and your mom." Sophia gave a small smile as she accepted the cup. "Thank you." The scent of cocoa comforted her a little. Benjamin sat down in a chair by the window. "How are you feeling?" Sophia shrugged, staring at the swirls of melted marshmallow. "Not better, I think. Last night was really bad." "I know," Benjamin said quietly. "But you're safe here, I promise. I won't let anyone hurt you or your mom." Sophia looked into his eyes, and for the first time she felt truly safe, a promise that brought her an unexpected peace. Before she could answer, voices were heard from the hallway, her mother's and an unknown woman's. Sophia and Benjamin went out into the corridor and found Lucia Ramirez standing in the doorway, talking to a curly-haired woman with a leather bag over her shoulder. "Hi, I'm Rocio Delgado from Child Protective Services." The stranger politely introduced herself. "Inspector Javier Morales asked me to come check on you after what happened last night." Lucia Ramirez blushed slightly, but took a step back. "Come in. I didn't know you'd be here so soon." Rocio Delgado gave her a sympathetic smile. "Sorry for the unexpected visit. I won't be taking too long." Rocio Delgado bent down a little to be at Sophia's eye level. "Hi, Sophia. I just wanted to know how you're doing and if you and your mom need anything." Sophia pressed herself against Lucia Ramirez's side. "We're fine," she replied softly. Benjamin took a step forward. "They're under my care now. I'm making sure they don't lack anything." Rocio Delgado nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Mr. Herrera." She handed Lucia Ramirez a business card. "If you need anything, clothing, psychological support, anything, call me. We want to help you get ahead." Lucia Ramirez took the card with an expression of relief mixed with gratitude. "Thank you." Rocio Delgado's gaze fell on Sophia again. "You've been very brave. Keep hanging in there, sweetheart." When she left, Lucia Ramirez sank down onto the sofa. "This is what our life is going to be like now," she whispered. "Broken. Police. Social workers. Hiding in someone else's house." Benjamin sat down next to her and gently took her hand. "It will only be like this until those responsible are caught. You are not alone, Lucia Ramirez. We will get through this, and I mean what I told Sophia. I will protect you like you were my family." Lucia Ramirez looked up, her eyes shining with gratitude. She couldn't find the words, so she simply squeezed her hand. In that moment, Benjamin truly felt like a guardian angel in their lives, a protective figure who had appeared when they needed him most. That same night, across town in an abandoned warehouse, Tomas Riva stood rigidly in front of Veronica Salgado. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling, casting a harsh light on Veronica's enraged face. "They saw you," she spat at him through gritted teeth. "And you left a knife. They're going to trace it right back to you." Tomas's neck burned with sweat running down his neck. "I couldn't help it. The woman woke up, and I ran." Veronica closed her eyes, taking a deep breath to contain her rage. When she spoke again, her voice was icy. "We're running out of time. The police will soon connect everything. We have to end this now, tie up all the loose ends." Tomas shifted uncomfortably. He had done many things for Veronica, but the coldness in her voice made him shudder. "Tomas, what do you want me to do?" Veronica's blue eyes glittered in the gloom. "We're going to eliminate the girl and Herrera. No more warnings, no more mistakes." Tomas hesitated, his stomach churning. Threatening a girl was one thing, but killing. He cleared his throat. "Herrera has security and police around him, and the girl is with him." A humorless smile spread across Veronica's lips. "We're going to get them out. Even the most cautious people can fall for it with the right bait." She leaned closer and lowered her voice. "We'll use someone the girl trusts. We'll get her out on her own, and then you take her. Herrera will chase after her desperately." Veronica's jaw tightened. "And we'll finish them off. This time, for real." Thomas swallowed and nodded, his expression grim. He didn't dare contradict her now. "I'll make the call," he said softly. Veronica's voice slid through the darkness, cold and full of venom. "Do it, and don't let me down again." Meanwhile, at Benjamin's house, Sophia remained unaware of the danger looming over her. Surrounded by affection and people determined to protect her, she allowed herself to believe the worst was over. But the true test of her courage and the strength of those who loved her was just beginning. 2 days later, life on the Herrera estate had found a cautious calm. Sophia and Lucia Ramirez spent most of their time inside the house or in the fenced garden. always under the watchful eye of Benjamin's security team. Inspector Javier Morales kept in frequent contact, though he didn't share any new developments. Sofia tried to stay positive. She helped Maria Elena with small chores in the kitchen and even taught Benjamin a card game she used to play with the neighborhood children, all to keep her mind off the dark thoughts that haunted her. One afternoon, while she was in the library browsing storybooks, she heard a soft sound. It wasn't the doorbell or the house phone. Intrigued, she followed the sound into the living room, where she saw her mother's old cell phone vibrating insistently on a table. Lucia Ramirez had left it there while she slept upstairs. Sofia picked it up. The screen displayed Doña Hilda's name. Sofia's heart leapt. Why was she calling? Maybe she hadn't heard from them and was worried. She pressed the answer button. "Hello? Hello?" A distressed voice burst from the other end. "Sofia! Oh, thank God! It's Doña Hilda, my girl." The voice did sound like Hilda's, although strangely strained. "Hello, I need your help, sweetheart. I fell outside the store and I think I broke my leg." The voice cracked with pain. Sofia's eyes widened in alarm. "What? Are you okay, Doña Hilda? Have you called an ambulance yet?" No. I can't get through to anyone else," the voice panted. "Please, my child, I'm alone. I need you to come here right away, but don't tell your mom. She's been through too much already. Just come here quickly, okay? I'm lying back in the alley." The voice pleaded with a desperation that seemed real and undeniable. Sofia was already moving, her heart pounding, adrenaline surging. "Wait, I'm on my way," she said in a panic and hung up. She ran to the hall and grabbed her light jacket. Her mind was racing. Maria Elena was out shopping, and Benjamin was in his office on a business call. If she went to say something, she'd waste valuable time. Donna Hilda needed her now. Sofia went out the front door and trotted to the property gate. The guard wasn't in his booth, probably patrolling the perimeter. She hesitated only a second before opening the pedestrian gate and stepping out onto the sidewalk, her heart hammering in her chest. Donna Hilda's store wasn't far away, only a few blocks. If she ran, she could get there in minutes, and every second counted in that urgency she felt deep inside. Her childish but brave mind was thinking only of helping her friend and neighbor. As she passed under an oak tree on the sidewalk, a black pickup truck rounded the corner with a violent screech. Sofia felt an instinctive shudder. She looked back toward the property, wondering if she should turn back, but couldn't decide. The truck stopped abruptly beside her. The side door flew open. A burly man in a dark hooded sweatshirt jumped out with alarming speed. Sofia screamed and tried to run, but strong arms caught her from behind, lifting her off the ground. "Let me go," she cried, kicking desperately. A gloved hand covered her mouth, muffling her screams. It all happened in seconds. She caught a glimpse of a second man behind the wheel, a cap covering his face. The man holding her shoved her into the truck. Sofia struggled with all her might, managing to bite his palm. He cursed softly and loosened his grip for a moment. "Help!" Sofia managed to scream. A single scream that cut through the air before the man threw her against the floor of the truck. He took a piece of cloth from his pocket and brutally tied it over her mouth, squeezing it behind her head. Sofia's eyes filled with tears from the pain and fear. She recognized the man, the same tall, burly man she had seen fleeing the night she found Benjamin. The slight limp he had as he moved inside the truck confirmed it. He was one of the attackers. The door slammed shut. "Start it!" the man barked at the driver. The tires squealed as he accelerated. Sofia cowered in a corner, her hands now bound with rough rope. Her heart was pounding so hard she felt it would burst. She thought of her mom, of Benjamin, of how he had left without telling anyone. I'm sorry," she murmured through the gag, tears streaming down her cheeks, remorse and dread dominating her thoughts. As the truck sped through the city, Sofia forced herself to breathe, to think. Inspector Javier Morales had taught her to remember details. Through the back window, she caught a glimpse of a tall billboard with a worn advertisement, just for a second, before they turned onto a highway. She mentally repeated the street names she glimpsed. If she had the chance, she'd tell someone, anyone, a small spark of hope amidst the terror. Minutes later, the truck braked and swerved. The tires crunched on gravel. They were entering some kind of lot. Sophia's stomach lurched. The vehicle stopped and the engine died. The back doors flew open. The man with a limp, Tomas, though Sophia didn't know his name, got in and roughly pulled her inside. They were behind an old warehouse near the docks. The air smelled of salt water and oil. Apart from a few seagulls, the place was deserted and silent, a desolate setting for its situation. Sophia's eyes darted wildly. The sun was about to set, lengthening the shadows on the dock. Planks. Tomas pulled her to her feet but didn't let go of her arm for a second. The driver came out from the other side of the truck to join them. She didn't know him. Tall, thin, with cold, cruel eyes. The boss said to tie her inside. "She's coming," the skinny man said, opening a heavy cargo door. His voice echoed in the empty interior. Sophia stumbled as Tomas shoved her into the darkness. Dust floated in the last rays of light as she was dragged toward a metal chair in the center of the enormous space. Her mind raced. She's coming. Tomas, who was she, the one behind all this? The men tied her to the chair with ropes around her chest and wrists. Tomas ripped off the gag, letting her breathe for the first time. "Please," Sophia gasped, her voice hoarse from crying. "Why are you doing this? We didn't hurt anyone," Sophia sobbed. Tomas avoided looking at her, a sign of his own discomfort. The thin man sneered, leaning down to her eye level. "I'm sorry, kiddo, it's nothing personal. You were just in the wrong place at the wrong time." A sob shook her chest. Sophia closed her eyes tightly, silently praying for someone to rescue her. If anyone could find her, it was Inspector Javier Morales or Benjamin. She had to cling to the hope that they would discover where she'd gone, a small flame of faith in the darkness. As the last light of day disappeared and night fell over the bodega, Sophia fought to stay brave. Although her hands were tied, she managed to find the small, metallic paper heart she still kept in her pocket, the one she had given Benjamin, and which he had returned to her for safekeeping when they moved in with him. She clutched it tightly, letting the crumpled paper dig into her palm, a talisman of hope. "Shut up," Tomas suddenly murmured, a strange tone of compassion in his voice. "And soon, it will all be over." In the darkness, Sophia couldn't tell if he was trying to comfort or threaten her, the ambiguity of his words increasing her confusion. Footsteps were heard from outside, the sharp click of heels on concrete. Sophia's heart stopped. A shiver of recognition ran through her body when she saw the silhouette in the doorway. Veronica Salgado strode into the warehouse, her face hard and implacable. Sophia's mind reeled. Miss Salgado, Benjamin's friend? The elegant businesswoman was the mastermind behind all this. "It's done." Veronica's voice cut through the silence like a razor. "We have the girl, as you ordered," the skinny man replied. "No one followed us, all clean." Veronica's gaze fell on Sophia, tied up and trembling in the chair. He gave her a thin smile, devoid of a hint of warmth. "Hello again, little one." A terrifying welcome that made Sophia shudder. Sophia's mouth felt dry. "Miss Salgado?" she stammered, confused, hurt. Betrayal burned in her chest. "Why?" Veronica took a slow, predatory step. "Why?" she repeated softly. "Because you couldn't stay out of it, my dear. You and your compassionate heart saved a man who was meant to die that night." Sophia's heart pounded inside her chest. Now she understood. Veronica had wanted Benjamin to die, and she ruined her plan. Veronica tilted her head, looking at the frightened girl in front of her. "I really wish this hadn't gone this far," she said, her voice almost repentant. "But I've worked too hard and for too long to let Benjamin Herrera or anyone else get in my way." In the distance, Sophia heard something. Sirens. She wasn't sure over the thundering no of her own heart, but Veronica heard it too. Her eyes narrowed. "Tomas, hurry!" she ordered her accomplices. "Let's end this now. Get ready for Herrera. He'll come running as soon as he finds out we're using his little savior as bait." Tomas shifted nervously. "Veronica, maybe we can still leave." "Enough!" Veronica's shout was like a whip. "Finish the job. Herrera will be here any moment. I'll take care of him." And as for the girl, her cold eyes met Sophia's, and the little girl saw a death sentence in them. There were no loose ends. Tears streamed down Sophia's face as Veronica pulled a silver pistol from inside her coat. The barrel gleamed in the darkness. Sophia inhaled in terror. Was this really how it was going to end? The wail of the sirens was now unmistakable, getting closer. Veronica's jaw tightened. "I told you no one followed us," she yelled at the thin man. "They must have tracked his truck or something," he stammered, panicking. Veronica's face twisted with rage. "It doesn't matter. Let's go welcome our guests." He aimed straight at Sophia's heart, his hand as firm as a rock. "Say goodbye, little heroine," he said, with the conviction of someone about to complete his macabre plan. Sophia squeezed her eyes shut, preparing for the worst. "Mom," she whispered, the words broken by desperation. A final wail before what she thought was her end. A gunshot exploded into the night. The thunder of the shot echoed throughout the warehouse. For a second, Sophia felt nothing. She thought she was already dead. But as her ears rang, she realized the bullet had missed, exploding against the concrete floor near her feet. Tomas had jumped just in time, pushing Veronica's arm and deflecting her shot. "What are you doing?" Veronica shrieked, staggering back. Before she could recover, a new voice boomed from the shadows. "Police, drop the gun!" Inspector Javier Morales burst through a side door, his weapon raised. Behind him, 2 more officers fanned out, also armed. They had turned off the sirens at the last moment to achieve the element of surprise, a tactic that proved crucial to Sophia's life. Veronica turned to them, her eyes wide. Instead of surrendering, she raised her pistol toward Inspector Javier. Before she could pull the trigger, a tall figure lunged at her from behind the officers. "Benjamin!" Veronica screamed in a piercing voice. Veronica whirled around to face Benjamin, just as he broke through the police line, driven by desperation. Her face twisted between fury and something close to pain. "You couldn't just stand still, could you?" she spat, now pointing it at him. Benjamin stopped a few feet away, his hands half raised. He ignored the gun pointed straight at his chest and stared at Veronica, his heart breaking. "Why?" he asked, his voice breaking. "I trusted you like I trusted my family, Veronica. Why would you do something like that?" Veronica's eyes flashed with a bitter mix of rage and regret. "Everything I did was for the company, for us. You were going to ruin everything with your sudden conscience, your charitable plans. I wasn't going to let you ruin it." Her voice cracked. "It was supposed to be mine." Benjamin's shoulders slumped as the truth sank in. "So you would kill me? You would kill a child? That's not ambition, Veronica, that's madness." Tears of frustration welled in her eyes, but she didn't lower the gun. "It's business, yes, and now I'm going to finish it." At that instant, Sophia shouted, "Mr. Benjamin, watch out!" Veronica's finger was already squeezing the trigger when a shot rang out, but it wasn't hers. Inspector Javier Morales had fired first. Veronica let out a moan. The gun flew from her hands when she was hit in the shoulder. She fell to her knees, stunned. Benjamin ran toward her and kicked the pistol away. 2 officers were already on her, handcuffing her as she moaned in pain. At the same time, another officer lunged at the thin accomplice who was trying to run for the door. Tomas, hands raised, voluntarily sank down next to Sophia's chair, not daring to move, his surrender an echo of the end of an era of terror. Sophia was trembling. She could hardly believe the storm she had just witnessed. Benjamin knelt, his voice muffled by relief and the knot of the gag still hanging around her neck. Benjamin was already at her side, taking out a pocket knife to cut the ropes that bound her. His hands were shaking as much as hers. "This is it, Sophia, I'm here," he murmured, his voice breaking. "Sophia, you're safe now." As soon as the last rope fell away, Sophia threw herself into his arms, hugging him with all her strength. He held her just as tightly, one hand on the back of her neck. Sophia could feel him trembling too, and when she looked at him, she saw tears streaming down his face, a reflection of the intense emotion they both shared. Inspector Javier Morales approached, putting his weapon away. "We have them, Sophia. It's over." He offered her a calm smile. Sophia tried to cry back, but all that came out was another burst of tears, all the fear and relief spilling out at once. Benjamin picked her up in his arms, letting her hide her face in his shoulder as she cried. Across the warehouse, the officers were lifting Veronica. Her face was pale, more from seeing her plan fall apart than from the gunshot wound. As they escorted her toward the patrol cars, Benjamin looked at her one last time. There wasn't hatred in his eyes, but sadness, compassion. Veronica looked away, her expression crumbling into utter defeat. "Mom!" Sophia suddenly cried, raising her head from Benjamin's shoulder. She saw Lucia Ramirez run into the warehouse, led by an officer. She must have arrived with the second group of police officers. Lucia Ramirez's face was covered with tears, despair and hope fighting in her eyes, until she saw Sophia alive in Benjamin's arms. Sophia sobbed. Benjamin quickly put her down, and Sophia ran to her mother. Lucia Ramirez dropped to her knees and hugged her so tightly they could barely breathe, but neither of them cared. Mother and daughter clung to each other, crying with pure relief, the culmination of a nightmare and the rebirth of hope in their hearts. Lucia Ramirez moved away just enough to take his face in her hands. "I'm here, my love. I'm here," she whispered, kissing his forehead again and again. "Thank God you're okay." "I'm sorry, Mom," Sophia said through her tears. "I only came out because I thought Doña Hilda was hurt." "Shh, it's over now," Lucia Ramirez soothed, though her voice was also trembling. "None of this was your fault. I love you so much, my daughter." Benjamin stayed close, his eyes moist at the reunion. Inspector Javier Morales joined in, clearing his throat gently. "The paramedics are coming to check everyone. Is anyone hurt?" Only then did Sophia notice the red stain on Benjamin's upper arm. "You're bleeding!" she exclaimed in alarm. "It's nothing. It just grazed me," Benjamin said, staring at the wound as if he could barely feel it. With the adrenaline rush, he hadn't noticed. A bullet, perhaps Veronica's, had hit him when she fired at the beginning. Now that it was all over, the pain was beginning to creep in, a physical reminder of the danger they had faced. Lucia Ramirez gasped and quickly tore off a piece of her blouse to apply pressure to the wound. "You saved my daughter, and you're the one who ends up hurt," she said with tears in her eyes. Benjamin shook his head. "It's worth it for Sophia. I'd accept 100 more wounds." Sophia reached out and gently held Benjamin's good hand. He responded with a light squeeze and a shaky smile. Within minutes, the paramedics arrived. They bandaged Benjamin's arm, and aside from a few bruises, Sophia had no serious injuries. As a paramedic finished examining her, Inspector Javier Morales returned with a warm smile. "The nightmare is over," he announced. "Veronica Salgado and her accomplices are in custody. They're going to spend many years in prison." Lucia Ramirez closed her eyes in relief. "Thank God," she whispered. She looked at Inspector Javier with deep gratitude. "And thanks to you, Inspector Javier. You saved his life." He nodded humbly. "It's enough for me to know that we arrived on time." He turned to Sophia with a proud look. "You were very brave, young lady." Sophia managed a tired smile. "I knew you would come," she said softly. Then she looked at Benjamin. "All of you." Benjamin sat carefully on the back step of the ambulance, wincing slightly at the pain in his arm. He reached out to surround Sophia and Lucia Ramirez with a tender gesture. "We're safe. That's all that matters." Lucia Ramirez rested her head on Sophia's, holding one of Benjamin's hands in silent thanks. In that moment, they felt like a true family, united by gratitude and love. Under the flickering of the red and blue lights, amid the murmur of police radios and muffled voices, Sophia closed her eyes. She let herself be enveloped by the steady beat of her mother's heart and Benjamin's comforting arm around her, chasing away the last shadows of fear. They had faced the darkness and come through together, and together they would heal. In the days that followed the harrowing rescue, life slowly began to mend. Sophia spent her first night home clinging to her mother in Benjamin's guest room, too scared to sleep alone, her tiny mind still processing the horrors of the previous night. But with each dawn at the Herrera house, the nightmares faded. Veronica Salgado and her accomplices were quickly charged with a long list of crimes. Inspector Javier Morales soon informed them that Veronica confessed in exchange for a plea deal, which spared Sophia from having to testify. Tomas Rivas, repentant, cooperated with the authorities, ensuring that Veronica would spend decades behind bars. "Justice will be served," Inspector Javier Morales assured Sophia and Lucia Ramirez one afternoon. The family felt a huge burden lifted from their shoulders, knowing these criminals couldn't harm anyone else. Over time, Sophia became something of a local hero. When the story became public, the press ran headlines about the brave 12-year-old girl who saved a millionaire and helped break up a criminal network. In a small ceremony at City Hall, the mayor and police chief presented Sophia with a medal for her bravery. Blushing and overwhelmed, she accepted it, on behalf of everyone who helped me. In her speech, Sophia especially thanked Inspector Javier Morales for his swift response, and Benjamin Herrera for being the kindest person I have ever met. Her words moved many in the audience to tears. Even Benjamin had to blink several times to hide his own. Benjamin's life also changed completely in those weeks. With Veronica out of the way, he took a temporary leave of absence from his company to reflect on what truly mattered. He often said that meeting Sophia and Lucia Ramirez had given him a new purpose. One morning, while sharing tea in the sunlit kitchen, Benjamin cleared his throat and made an announcement that took both mother and daughter by surprise. "I've been thinking," he said with a gentle smile, "about how I can honor what you did for me, Sophia, and how to give back to others in a meaningful way." He explained his idea to create a charitable foundation in Sophia's name, focused on helping needy children throughout the city. Sophia's eyes widened. Benjamin followed up with a proposal to open a community center in their own neighborhood, a safe haven with after-school programs, tutoring classes, and free meals. "A place," he added, "that can help many little Sophias and families like yours." Lucia Ramirez placed a hand on her chest, visibly moved. "Mr. Herrera, Benjamin, are you sure?" she asked, tears in her eyes. "This is a huge deal." Benjamin tenderly took Lucia Ramirez's hand. "I've never been more sure of anything," he replied. "My whole life I've focused on business and profit, but Sophia's kindness showed me that there is much greater wealth in caring for others. I have the means to make a difference, and I can't think of a better way to use them." Sophia threw herself into a tight hug, her voice trembling with joy. "Thank you," Sophia whispered. He could hardly imagine that something so good for so many people could come from his small act of bravery. News of Benjamin Herrera's mission spread quickly. Rocio Delgado, the social worker, was thrilled when Benjamin asked her for help planning the center's services. Doña Hilda cried with joy when she learned that the abandoned grocery store on the corner would be remodeled to become the new community center. Amid the hustle and bustle of planning and construction, Sophia and her mother temporarily returned to their apartment. But now he no longer felt so alone. Benjamin was a constant presence. He visited them daily, ate dinner with them, and made sure they lacked nothing. It wasn't long before he insisted on buying them a new apartment, safer and closer to their home. Lucia Ramirez only agreed when Benjamin had the astute idea of putting the property in Sophia's name as an investment for her college education. Seasons passed, and when the autumn leaves covered the streets, the community center was ready for its grand opening. Sophia could barely contain her excitement as she helped paint the last colorful murals on the center's walls. She knew that within those once empty rooms, there would soon be laughter, learning, and hope, just as she had found. A fresh, bright autumn sun illuminated the community center's renovated facade as a crowd gathered outside for the ceremony. The once overgrown storefront, now vibrant and cheerful, was decorated with a mural of smiling children holding hands. Over the entrance hung a banner with large letters reading, "Sophia Alvarez Hope Center." Sophia stood next to Benjamin at the makeshift podium, her heart racing with a mixture of nerves and joy. Smoothed her hands down the front of her new dress, a gift from Benjamin, and scanned the gathered faces. Lucia Ramirez stood in the front row, wiping away tears with a handkerchief, the expression of pride and gratitude on her face unmistakable. Inspector Javier Morales was also there in his dress uniform, giving a thumbs up in support. Rocio Delgado and Doña Hilda shared a seat, beaming with pride. And among the crowd were neighborhood families, local government officials, and a dozen children jumping up and down, excited to see the new center. Benjamin tapped the microphone gently and began to speak. "Hello. Thank you all for being here on this special day," he said in a clear, firm voice. "Not long ago, an extraordinary girl gave me a second chance at life. Sofia Alvarez showed me the power of compassion and courage. That changed my life and set in motion all the good things we celebrate today." He turned to Sofia and smiled. "This center is named after Sofia because she inspired it. It is a beacon of hope for every child who walks through its doors." His eyes moistened as he continued. "That night, my life was saved in more ways than one. Today, Sofia taught me that we must look out for one another, as a family. So for Sofia and for every child and parent in this community, this is for you." The crowd erupted in applause. Sofia felt her cheeks heat up and her eyes sting, but they were tears of happiness. Benjamin handed her a pair of large scissors to cut the ribbon, and together they approached the red ribbon placed in front of the center's double doors. "Ready, dear?" whispered Benjamin. Sofia felt his firm hand, and together they raised the scissors and cut the ribbon. "Welcome," she announced with a big smile. The ribbon fell to the floor as the audience applauded enthusiastically. Lucia Ramirez was the first to run and hug her daughter tightly. "I'm so proud of you," she murmured. Doña Hilda patted Sofia on the shoulder, joking through her tears. "Our little heroine has become quite the legend, hasn't she?" Inspector Javier Morales burst out laughing. "Without a doubt, one of the best citizens this city has." Sofia laughed shyly and reached for Benjamin's hand. He squeezed it tenderly. Around her, children ran excitedly inside the building to explore the playroom and reading corner. As reporters took photos of the smiling Alvarez family and their millionaire friend in the golden afternoon light, Sofia felt an immense wave of gratitude. In that moment, she understood everything they had come through. From that dark street where an act of kindness was born to this new place filled with laughter and hope. Benjamin knelt beside her just as a photographer raised his camera. "Smile, Sofia," he said softly. "This is your day." Sofia didn't need to be told. She was already smiling, a radiant, genuine smile that lit up her young face like a sunrise after a long night. As the camera clicked, she looked around at the people, who were now her extended family, and realized a simple, beautiful truth. A single act of kindness can change the world. In a world that so often feels uncertain, kindness can seem like a small thing, but sometimes it's precisely that tiny light that guides us through the darkest night. A 12-year-old girl, with nothing more than a worn-out flashlight and a heart full of compassion, saved a life, and in doing so, helped transform the futures of many more. This story reminds us that sometimes, all a child needs is someone to believe in them, and sometimes, all we adults need is a reason to believe in goodness again. If you're listening to this story in the afternoon, perhaps with a warm cup of tea by your side or the sound of birds chirping through your window, we want to lovingly ask you, what moment in your life softened your heart the most? Have you ever seen something beautiful born from pain or difficulty? We may be the ones telling this story, but we're also here to listen. If this story touched your heart, we hope you take a little piece of it with you. And if something in you was moved, share it with someone else, because you never know when your words could become a light for someone who has lost their way. How do you feel after hearing this story? We'd really like to know. Don't be shy, your voice matters here too. This is an ending, but also a new beginning. Sofia's kindness was a seed that germinated in a field of adversity, transforming not only her life and that of her mother, but that of an entire community. Benjamin Herrera, the man saved, found in that little girl a renewed calling, a purpose that transcended business success. The courage of a girl, the sacrifice of a mother, the generosity of a man who decided to look beyond his own interests, all intertwined to build a brighter future, a future that once seemed impossible. Sofia Alvarez's story is not only a tale of personal improvement, but a testament to the transformative power that lies in the simplest acts of compassion and courage. It is a reminder that, even in the darkest moments, the light of kindness can prevail, guiding the way toward hope and reconstruction. The support network that formed around Sofia and Lucia Ramirez, from Inspector Javier Morales to Doña Hilda and Rocio Delgado, demonstrated that true strength lies in unity and in society's ability to protect the most vulnerable. The community, once marked by indifference and danger, became a refuge, a place where each individual felt responsible for the well-being of others. This new center of hope, named after Sophia, stands as a tangible symbol of this transformation, a space where children's dreams can flourish, where knowledge is accessible, and where empathy is the most valuable currency. It is living proof that goodness, when cultivated with care, has the power to multiply and heal deep wounds, creating a legacy that endures through generations. And although the threat of darkness will always lurk in the corners of the world, Sophia's story teaches us that fear can be overcome by love and determination. Every laugh that echoes through the halls of the center, every book read by a curious little hand, every meal shared among families in need, is an echo of the courage of that 12-year-old girl who, with an old flashlight and trembling fingers, decided to face an evil that was not hers. Her story has become a beacon of light for all those who feel lost or hopeless, a reminder that every action, no matter how small it may seem, has the potential to trigger a chain of positive events that can change the course of many lives, leaving an indelible mark on the fabric of society. Sophia's impact transcended the walls of her neighborhood, reaching other philanthropists and organizations who, inspired by Benjamin's model and the Sofia Alvarez Foundation, began to replicate similar initiatives in other communities. The small seed of kindness had grown into a leafy tree, with branches reaching thousands of people, offering them not only material aid but also a sense of belonging and dignity that had been robbed by circumstances. This movement, initiated by an act of spontaneous courage, demonstrated that true wealth is not measured in material goods, but in the ability to touch hearts and build a world where compassion and justice are fundamental pillars of human coexistence, a legacy that Sophia unknowingly had begun to build that dark night. The relationship between Sophia, Lucia, Ramirez, and Benjamin Herrera solidified into a true family, not because of blood ties, but because of the deep connection they forged through adversity and gratitude. Dinners at Benjamin's house, conversations about Sophia's dreams, and shared laughter became the new normal, a balm for the wounds of the past. Sophia grew up knowing that her courage had been the catalyst for significant change, and that her voice mattered. She remained steadfast in her desire to become a teacher, knowing that, through education, she could continue to light the paths of other children, just as Benjamin had lit his own. Her story is not just an anecdote, but an inspiring testament to how the human spirit can transform tragedy into an opportunity for good, forging a future of hope where once there was only despair. The day the Sofia Alvarez Hope Center opened its doors, the community's air seemed to vibrate with renewed energy. Children's laughter echoed through the freshly painted hallways, and the smell of new books mingled with the smell of fresh food that would be served there. Sophia, now with a more mature and confident smile, walked among the visitors, greeting everyone with an ease she hadn't possessed before. Lucia Ramirez watched her daughter with moist eyes, each tear a silent testament to the path they had traveled. Benjamin Herrera, with his recovered arm and more serene gaze, was the personification of gratitude and rediscovered purpose. He had not only funded the center but had become a mentor to Sophia, encouraging her to dream big and believe in the power of her own actions. With every step, Sophia felt the weight of a promising future, a future that seemed unthinkable so recently, when the darkness of the alley and Veronica's threat seemed insurmountable. That center was not just a building, it was a sanctuary of dreams, a monument to human resilience and the ability to transform suffering into a source of lasting hope for all those seeking a new beginning in their lives, a legacy of goodness that would extend for generations. Sophia's story extended beyond the city limits, inspiring countless people to look at their own communities and find ways to make a difference. International reports and documentaries were produced about her life, transforming the girl from a poor neighborhood into a global symbol of compassion. She, however, remained humble, always reminding everyone that her initial act was driven by the simple need to help. It's not about grand gestures, but small acts of kindness that add up, she would often say at conferences, her voice clear and full of conviction. The life of Sophia and her mother, Lucia, though marked by scars, blossomed into a garden of opportunity. The new, safer, and more comfortable apartment allowed Lucia more time for herself and to support Sophia in her studies. University, which had once seemed a distant dream, was now a tangible reality, a path opened by Benjamin's generosity and Sophia's own persistence in seeking a better future. This outcome is not just the end of a story, but the beginning of a legacy of hope and transformation for many lives.